Hello and welcome to the Gridiron Show, just ahead of Divisional Weekend, for many the best weekend in the football calendar. Delighted to say, back alongside me will Gavin, Simon Clancy, Marcel and Michael McQuaid, and not Ollie Hunter, because apparently in the Dales he has Wi-Fi that is run by a small duck on a water wheel, just running round in circles trying to get something going.
If only it was that reliable.
Look, obviously we're here. We're going to talk about the Divisional Round coming up this weekend. But first and foremost, the home teams have been announced for the NFL International Series games. We've got 5 games in Europe this year, with the Mexico game being off basically for the next couple of years while the Estadio Azteca gets ready for the next World Cup. And so it's going to be 3 in London, 2 in Germany. As we talked about previously, the Chiefs and Patriots in Germany. And we get the Jags at Wembley and the Bills and the Titans at Tottenham. 5 playoff caliber teams over recent years. You know, teams who have played in AFC Championship games. 3 teams who are in the Divisional Round weekend this weekend. And obviously the point of the NFL is you can never predict what it's going to be like come October, come November, whenever these games might be played. But Simon first, I think back to the years where we didn't have the 17-game schedule and 9 home games a season, and it was very difficult to get good teams to come to London. It's nice to see some good teams coming to London.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I grew up in an era where I listened to the NFL on the Armed Forces radio, and just as the ball was thrown into the end zone, and then it'd be a commercial break, you wouldn't know what happened. So, yeah, I mean, always thankful for these games and good teams like Buffalo, you know, Josh Allen in London. That's fantastic to see that. And I know that, you know, the Titans have had an up and down year. And I think if they get Ryan Tannehill back healthy, then, you know, hopefully things will look up. But yeah, and Jacksonville, a playoff team, going to Kansas City this weekend with a chance to head to the AFC title game. It's 3 really good teams, but really jacked up to see the Bills. I mean, that will be that's a great team, and, you know, so many good personalities on that team. That should be a fun week.
Yeah, not just Josh Allen, Mike, but Stephon Diggs, Von Miller when he gets back healthy. Like, we know that team's great top to bottom, but they've got the superstars that they can put on the posters to line Tottenham High Street as you approach, and every one of them being like a player you go wow about.
Could you imagine Chick King that morning of that game? There'd be tables outside, everyone going absolutely mental opposite the stadium. It's fitting that the back of my house, I'm looking at it right now, the back garden is covered in snow. We're a barbecue and a few beers and the table away from a Bills Mafia tailgate. I'm buzzing with the games, and I was talking to my compadres over at Gridiron Deutschland who are das good about the Chiefs and the Patriots. Everyone's buzzing. I mean, well, we've seen the big Chiefs sign on the way out to the airport after the game. Like, you know, we're coming soon. So it was pretty obvious it was going to happen. But the London games are awesome. The Germany games are awesome. And I now start lighting a candle for hopefully a Steelers game in Dublin in 2 years. Who knows?
Did you just say das good?
That's good, yeah. That's good.
Amazing.
That's good.
Shameful.
It wasn't great.
Shameful.
It wasn't great.
It's a new low, Will. It's a new low.
Look, we can continue giving our thoughts on it, but let's hear from one of the main men for making these things happen, both in his work over in the US with NFL media over the last 10 or 15 years, and now back in the UK as the NFL UK general manager. I caught up today after the announcement with Henry Hodgson.
So delighted to say, joined by the NFL UK General Manager Henry Hodgson. Huge amount of excitement amongst the NFL UK fan base, Henry, after the announcement today. So firstly, you guys must be absolutely buzzing in the office there.
Yeah, we are very excited. Well, when we found out the lineup of teams that we're going to have as designated teams in London this year, and those for Germany for that matter, just couldn't have been more excited about the quality of teams that are going to be coming to London and to Germany. And you're right, we are collectively buzzing about the 2023 games. Now we've just got 10 months to wait.
But that's why I like announcements at a time like this, is because you start to get into that mindset of there's only 7 games left of the season, and then you've got that long old off season. So now's the moment to pitch from the excitement to make sure that we need something to carry us to the combine and to the draft and everything else.
Exactly. This is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. Look, does it make it? I was wondering. You said about the designated teams. How much easier has that become now that it's 17 games? You have the 9 home games, and for you guys, that the noticeable quality over the last 2 years of teams being willing to give up a home game because of this designation now, it's remarkable how good those teams have been the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think the commitment that the teams have now to play internationally is really important, and that's certainly helped make sure that we get teams, willing to come and play here, Germany, Mexico, etc. I think there's also a sort of a bit of an element of luck, and as we all know, you can look at a game on paper in January of the same year that the game's taking place, and you can't. The NFL's so balanced that you won't know exactly what you get until the day they show up in London or wherever in the future. But I think the quality of these are teams that have been consistently great, and what I'm really excited about is as you head into divisional round of the playoffs, 2 of our teams that are going to be coming to play in London later this year are still alive, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I'd argue all 5, as we're sat now, look like they could and should be playoff teams next year. Like you wouldn't be stunned at all if they were. And yeah, it was noticeable today just how positive people were around that, and particularly Buffalo. That's the one that I think people are particularly hyped about. And I was interested because, as you can imagine, speculation the last few weeks has been rife. People get all excited about it, wanting to guess who the teams are. There was a lot of talk about the Jets and the Dolphins as the international home marketing teams. Almost surprised that it wasn't those teams that were coming out, because they've got such a stake in the market now, and we've seen how much they've pushed to be present in the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably just for listeners who probably maybe don't completely understand how this process works, right? A couple of years ago, when the schedule was extended to the 18th week, there was also a commitment that every team would play once every 8 years, and that it would bounce back and forth between the AFC and the NFC, depending on which conference had that extra game or extra home game. So this year, you're right, or coming up in 2023, is the AFC has that extra game. And to your point, our 3 AFC, although it is balanced, but that's only by coincidence, our 3 AFC UK HMA clubs are the Jags, who obviously have this ongoing commitment to play here. And then, to your point, the Jets and Dolphins. I think when we spoke to them, they were certainly the first teams whose doors we knocked on in this process. They had both just played here in 2021, again, by coincidence. That was prior to the HMA program being underway. But as a result, I think both felt that they wanted to maybe look at the future, i.e. 2 years down the line or 4 years down the line, and continue to do what they've been doing to grow and engage the fans they have in the UK, with the same process that they're using currently, and have that big moment here in the future. And I think that's absolutely right and great that they gave it the consideration. I think what you can expect to see is more from them, regardless of them playing here or not. Expect to see more from both of those teams, and for that matter, all 6 UK HMA clubs, because it isn't just about playing games here. It's about being present, having watch parties, etc. And I know you've been part of that, but also, I think hopefully fans have had a chance to experience and see that these clubs are really, planning on being very active here to as I say, grow the fan base and to get.
Come on,
Gauge their current fans.
Sorry, I fell over slightly there, but I got you at the end. Undoubtedly, very exciting time to be an NFL UK fan. Super exciting time to be a German fan as well. I know that they mentioned me when you were on with TalkSport, but I still come away from Munich last year. I think that's up there with the very best events I've attended, full stop, in terms of a live sports event, whether it's a Super Bowl, whether it's college games, all of those events. The atmosphere, the fan base, so incredible. Not to put words in anyone's mouth, but I feel like the decision to put 2 games in Germany might have been quite an easy one, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I suppose there was an element of luck also to that, in that Mexico, because of the renovations that are taking place at Estadio Azteca, meant that they couldn't host a game. So I think the fact that we had, if you like, a spare game, a game to play somewhere, the success of the Germany game, albeit that wasn't a surprise, I don't think, to many people here. But the success of that just sort of underscored, the desire and demand for the sport in Germany. And so you're right, in the end, it felt like a bit of a no-brainer to double down on what we're doing in that market.
Do we know anything at the moment about Munich, Frankfurt, 2-in-1 city split between the two, anything like that at the current time?
all of that is being explored. I would expect that, sort of around or towards that schedule release time, so April or May, we'll be able to confirm all of those types of things.
And look, I'd be remiss not to ask you about it, but a lot of people tweeted when we put out the announcement out there. Lots of excitement, but also, these are hugely in-demand games. We saw all those screenshots of 800,000, 900,000 people in the queue trying to get tickets. When can we expect ticket announcements, and what are the NFL doing to try and make sure that the tickets end up in the hands of fans as much as possible?
Yeah, it's a great question, Will, and something we focused on really since sort of September, October, when I had arrived in this role. I really want to make sure that we do a better job of getting tickets into fans' hands. So we've slightly changed and updated that registry of interest process. And if anyone's listening hasn't done that yet, go and register your interest in buying tickets for the games in London and Germany if you want to as well. But the plan is to work really closely with Ticketmaster and make sure that as best as we can. And look, there's huge demand for this for these games, so the ticket sales are going to be oversubscribed, I would say, compared to the number of seats available. But we want to do as much as we can working with Ticketmaster to make sure that fans are able to get their hands on those tickets.
And last one from me, just, you mentioned it, September, October, you came back over, been working here for a while now. A few times I've seen you, you've seemed to be enjoying the role. How has that first kind of 6 months been for you, and how excited are you for the upcoming season and the continued growth out here?
It's been good, thanks, Will. Thank you for checking in on me. It's been pretty good.
I always like to make sure you're all right, Henry. It's a big transition.
That. Thank you. No, it's been really good. Look, it was honestly quite a whirlwind stepping in when I arrived, and there were games imminent. I think having the fan base that we have in this market is amazing, and first and foremost, that's the thing that really gets me excited is the fan base we have and the potential fan base we're going to have in the future. We've got a great team here at the UK office as well, and the team here has done an awesome job of delivering those amazing games. But everything else that goes on behind the scenes with NFL Academy, the NFL flag programs, etc. So I'm really in a very lucky, enviable situation, and we're looking forward to continuing that growth in the next year and beyond.
I've always said it, but I can remember first starting at TalkSport 11 years ago now, and there maybe being two of us in the office who got excited for these things. Now, after the announcement was teased this morning, I came in today and 15, 20 different people coming up and asking, what do you know? When are we going to know? What's being announced? Like, people are desperate for this information. So it's really great to see, and love the work you guys are doing. And yeah, thanks for bringing some great teams over this year.
I'm not going to take the credit for that, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Will. And thank you for everything you do to help us grow the sport as well. It's really important to us.
Love it. Appreciate it, Henry. Thank you so much. That was really great.
The lovely Henry Hodgson there. I hope that Michael cut off the bit before the end, before it all became a bit too much of a love-in. It was all it's been great. The games go to the KO.
Who doesn't love a bit of Hank, though? What a guy.
What a guy. And look, I think he was great on the teams. He was great on the process. Gave us some really good information there. There was speculation, and I'd heard that the Dolphins and Jets were both likely teams because of the marketing agreement. Fascinating to hear that both teams specifically wanted to wait 2 more years, 4 more years before they gave up a home game to give them more time to build up that fan base here in the UK, like to get their cool moment down the line. I thought that was great to hear. I had to ask about the tickets. It's the thing that we get immediately tweeted about the moment that we put it out there. It does sound like it's in their mind. It does sound like it's something they're trying to work on and work with. But at the end of the day, while Ticketmaster still has the agreement it has with the NFL, and Ticketmaster still has the problems that it has with touts and with the ability to get in and buy multiple tickets, there is only a certain amount they can do. It's good to hear they're doing what they can, but yeah, I know people will be frustrated about tickets. At least it's nice to know they're doing something, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess even before we know who the opponent is for the Buffalo Bills, that's going to be a hugely sought after game. I've seen online people in their thousands were already asking about tickets, and Bills fans in the UK, Europe, Ireland, wherever, were just dying to get some. So it doesn't matter who the opponents are, both games will sell out, and obviously the Jaguars going to Wembley as well. So I'm really intrigued to see what the demand's like, and also to see how crazy it gets for Germany, because I remember I was 700,000 last year, so I'm sure the NFL will do a good job in sorting all that.
Can I throw something out there? I'm going to go Bills Raiders in terms of the fixture. I don't think it'll be I don't think the Jets, with the question marks of quarterback, I don't think it'll be the Jets, because I feel that's got blowout written all over it. I don't think it'll be the Dolphins, because I don't think that, having played each other 3 times last season, division rivals, it's a big game. Dolphins won 2019, Bills won 31-29, Bills won 34-31 in the playoffs, in a great playoff game. That's got Sunday night, Monday night football written all over it. I don't think that they're going to want to give up a game that will be a big draw primetime game, especially after the playoff game last weekend. So I'm going to go Raiders, actually. I think that could be, because obviously so many historic Raider fans over in this country, in terms of, people that grew up with the game in the 80s when the Raiders were massive with Marcus Allen and stuff. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think one thing that caught my attention with it as well is that the fact that with both Miami and New York, they said that they'd played here in the last couple of years, just before the new international marketing home agreement thing came in. So the Raiders, it's been a while since they've been here, but only a couple of years. Similarly with the Cowboys, that's another one on their schedule that looks like a possibility. Actually, with the Bills, they're playing a lot of the teams who are already on the who have already either played here this year or in recent years. So New England, Jacksonville, the Giants who were here last year, Denver who were here last year, Tampa Bay who were here last year, and they don't want to try and put that on teams in kind of back-to-back years unless they are asking for it. So yeah, the Raiders stood out to me. Dallas did stand out to me as well. I think with Dallas, it's the same reason that we see with why it's so hard to get Green Bay over here. Is people don't want to give up a home game against Dallas. Huge traveling fan base, huge sales on their own part. Ticket prices for the single game tickets they will put at their highest rate in the highest banding. And similarly, I've heard that from various people that there are conversations about San Francisco being the team to come out and play Jacksonville. Would make sense. Haven't been here since 2013, but both the games they played here were in that early part of that decade. But the fact is for Jacksonville, San Francisco, again, good traveling team, good support nationwide in America. So those are the teams that can be hard to get a side to give a home game up for. I'd love to see it. Bills, Raiders, Jags, Niners. They sound like good games to me. And then Tennessee are the one I could see giving up a divisional game. Maybe we see Bryce Young and the Texans. Who knows?
Bills Cowboys feels like arguably the best game we'll have ever had over here, if that is what it is, in terms of, because that's 2 stellar teams from each conference. Josh Allen isn't going anywhere, Dak Prescott isn't going anywhere, so that you're going to get that full complement of quarterbacks next season, whereas question marks with the Jets in terms of who they might, question marks even with the Raiders with Derek Carr. But, that would feel like the best game we've ever had on our turf over here, so very exciting.
I'm going to jump in as well and say I look forward to seeing Will Gavin's face if the Bay Area does come to London. I'm sure he'll be a very, very happy man. I'll guess on the Germany side, I'm going to guess Commanders for the Patriots, and I'm going to guess the Lions for the Chiefs.
Oh, that'd be a good game.
I'd take it and run.
Yeah, that would be sensational. Oh, I said to myself after this year that I'd try and get to one of the 2 Germany games next year. I'm already thinking about trying to go to both. Can you play them in back-to-back weeks, please, NFL, so that I can just stay out there instead of having to travel twice? That'd be lovely.
What a country, by the way. What a great country.
And lest we forget that they're going to be holding the Euros in the not too distant as well. So I'd like to get my German scrubbed up on so I can try and push to be out there with my other employees as well. Yeah, certainly to a better level than Michael's.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
You say about seeing my face. The 49ers, the first time they played in London was one of the, I missed the first couple of London games. So the Broncos in 2010 was, I think, only my second game I saw here. And then that year with the Jags was the first time I got to go as a reporter, as somebody working on it. And so, yeah, there's special memories attached to both of those. And yeah, I'd love it. Obviously, I'd love it. If the Super Bowl champions were coming over to London, wouldn't everyone love it?
No, Philly aren't coming, mate.
Good. There are 3 teams in the divisional round coming over to Europe next year. It's as good a chance as we're ever going to have of one of them winning the Super Bowl and then coming
Yeah,
over.
absolutely.
A couple of them are Germany, but it's fine. It's fine. Should we turn our attention to the divisional round weekend and start off with Jags Chiefs, opening game of the weekend, 9:30 Saturday evening. I think Jacksonville's come back against Los Angeles, and a huge amount has obviously been made. Now Brandon Staley's done his end of year press conference and tried to justify the collapse and the Jacksonville comeback. But I think if the Jags had beaten the Chargers in normal fashion, I think most people would be looking at this weekend and thinking that this is, very much in the Chiefs to lose category, double-digit favourites, etc. There's something about that second half from Jacksonville. I don't know. It just appears to have got people's backs up. I've seen a lot of people saying that they think the Jags are going to give the Chiefs a real game this weekend, Simon.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, you're just riding the wave of that that come from behind victory. Doug Peterson's a quality coach. I know Matt Sherry hates him, but he's a quality coach. Good team. We talked about the other day, good on defense. Trevor Lawrence playing really well. I know there was the 4 interceptions, but you have to look at the whole of the last sort of 8-10 weeks of the season in terms of how he played. I think, I do often worry sometimes about, teams that have been in the playoffs in terms of, they've known they're going to be in the playoffs for 3 or 4 weeks, and no, they don't take their foot off the pedal, but there isn't quite the competitive edge as there was. I know that they're challenging for the number 1 seed and ultimately got it, but nevertheless, just having that week off, and you just wonder about a team that's coming in with all this momentum. But then maybe the flip side is that the emotional side of what happened with the Jags, Mike, the other night, that maybe there was so much emotion. You saw the scenes in the locker room, off to the Waffle House, all those sorts of things that perhaps there's just a bit of an anticlimax, and KC just take them to it. You can obviously see myriad ways that Kansas City can win when they've got the ball, and ways to get after Trevor Lawrence. But I think it will be a really tight game, Mike.
I think insert the Michael Irvin meme speech. Nobody believes in you. Nobody's giving you a chance. I think Doug Peterson needs to stand there on Saturday and say that to his team. Yeah, there's that interesting concept where the Chiefs have the bye week. The Jags go through hell, come back in the fashion in which they came back and really start asking questions. I seen while putting together some social content this week on Gridiron, I almost forgot the first play the Jags had in Arrowhead in November. Doug Peterson does an onside kick. The Jags may not be the favourites for this game this weekend, and the line certainly says that, but by God, they will go down fighting. When you've got Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Evan Engram, and Travis Etienne on the run game, you have to suggest that they're going to go in and aim to score anywhere between 34 to 38 points. Will they get there? Who knows? But if they do get 34 to 38 points, they have as much a chance as anybody as long as they can stop the Chiefs at certain points on the offense. I'm really excited for this game. I think this could be the day where we see Trevor Lawrence assert himself in this league. Now,
I think we've seen that already. I already think we've seen that a few times. I think that is. I think we've there should be no Trevor Lawrence doubters left out there. Yes, he's still got room to grow and push forward, but for me, the Jags really exciting young secondary who have been playing really well recently. They've got some pass rush in Josh Allen. I think that defense can cause Kansas City problems. I kind of feel like for Kansas City, what they've done better this year on offense is it's not been about the big play as much. They've been much better at moving the ball down the field, being a bit more methodical with it, using the running backs out of the backfield, using the run game. But Jacksonville, they're kind of an ultimate underdog team. They start the season 3-7, somehow make the playoffs. They come back from 27 down in the wild card round. They consistently play well from behind, whereas I was looking at the kind of DVOA stats, etc. Kansas City, when they've got a lead, Steve Spagnuolo, in classic Spags fashion, tends to get a lot more aggressive when the Chiefs are ahead. Actually, that makes me think that Jacksonville, if they're down by a score, even 2 scores in the fourth quarter, still have real opportunities with the weapons they have, with Trevor Lawrence there to stage another comeback. I hate the lineup. I think it's +9 right now. Jacksonville have. I expect them to keep it closer than that. I still would pick a Chiefs win, but I think Jacksonville will give a brilliant account of themselves. I really do this weekend, and I'm excited to see what they do going forward as well.
I think the one thing to note, though, is that they won that surprise. They had that surprise onside kick. They were +3 in the turnover battle when they played in November, and yet the Chiefs still won comfortably by 10, and it could have been more. So I think that's got to be something that Doug Peterson has to try and overcome, because they weren't really that close in that game. So that would be an issue for me moving forwards.
I do think it's a better team now. I do.
Definitely, I definitely do. But that those sorts of things linger. I think, especially when you win the turnover battle, and yes, 10 points isn't massive, but it didn't feel like a 10-point win. It felt like a bigger win.
If they done it though, if they won on Saturday night, it blows the AFC open. It would be incredible if they done it from a neutral standpoint.
Yeah, although I think the winner of the AFC comes from the other game, I've got to say.
It's funny, we've been debating the other game a lot in the office. In fact, you know what we're going to do? Instead of going to the NFC game, let's go to the other game. Let's talk Bengals-Bills. Because we have obviously the Bills coming to London, it's generated a huge amount of attention. There's a big Bengals fan amongst the TalkSport staff, the great Ollie Thornton, who feels hugely disrespected by the way and people are talking about this game this weekend, by the fact that the Bills opened as 5-point favourites. I think they opened as 6-point favourites and have come into 5-point favourites. They've been backed. The fact that everyone is talking about the fact that their offensive line has had all the injuries, that the Bills it's going to be a walkover. This is going to be easy for a Buffalo side. But I kind of feel that way. I know that when these teams were due to play in week 17, and obviously that game ended in what could have been very tragic circumstances, thankfully wasn't. But I was backing the Bengals going into that game, and I thought the Bengals, for the first 9 minutes of that game, with their opening drive and the way they were setting up for that second drive, I thought they were set up for not just a win, but a good win in that game. It's obviously very still early stages, but I think the Bengals were in the right position. Losing 3 key members of their offensive line when it's been such a weakness the last couple of years just gives me so much pause in the playoffs. And I don't know, it makes me find it very difficult to pick the Bengals this weekend. Very difficult.
Yeah, I always look, and we've talked about this before, I always look for those teams that coming down the stretch just start to really hit their straps. And because more often than not, they're the teams that, rather than the team that are sort of 8-0 or whatever, the Bengals are one of those teams that, the Jaguars too, but the Bengals are one of those teams that got really hot at the right time. You do wonder whether or not they peaked in that first quarter against Buffalo. They look so slick in that game. Compare that to the game, in fact, the 2 games against Baltimore, but especially the playoff game last weekend. I know they're difficult games because they're divisional games in terms of that. But like you say, the offensive line issues. I just wonder, Mike, do you think the offensive line is worse this year now with the injuries than it was when they got to the Super Bowl last year? Jonah Williams with the knee dislocation, and it was been pretty porous all season long. But to go into any sort of playoff game, but a game against the Bills and then potentially a game either against Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, or a playoff game against Frank Clark and those guys at Kansas City, that's not what you want coming down the pipe if your offensive line is really struggling, is it?
I think the Bills' defense will be licking their lips this weekend. I mean, like watching that Ravens Bengals game last weekend, and the amount of pressure that Joe Burrow was under was alarming. That being said, like it's difficult for them in the situation that they are, where they have got so many injuries on the line, where they can find a way to cover those cracks for a full 60 minutes. It's very, very difficult. So you look at the way the Bills, yes, they did not play to their full potential last week against the Dolphins. There were some moments of magic. There were some signs of superb play from Josh Allen. If the Buffalo defense can get to Joe Burrow enough, I don't think this game is as close as it goes. And I really, something tells me that the Bills are just going to honestly be comfortable winners on Sunday. Maybe that's crazy, but I just think they'll win like 28-14 or something. I really think the defense will come up big. I think Burrow's going to have a poor game, and you can go old take expose on Sunday and screenshot this, put it in the Gridiron WhatsApp group, whatever you want. I think the Bengals are really going to struggle, and we've seen it in the Super Bowl last year. We talked about it on the podcast at the start of the week, the way they crumbled. I think the offensive line crumbles on Sunday.
I think these are 2 really good football teams, and like I that's why I don't think it will be a demolition. And the Bengals, let's not disrespect their defense either, which carried them to the Super Bowl last year. Still has a lot of the same pieces. The pass rush has stepped up in recent weeks. The coordinator's still there. Like everything, it's like. And the Bills' offensive line isn't their strength necessarily. So there are reasons to be cheerful for Bengals fans. I'm not suggesting blowout. I'm struggling. Maybe the one thing I think that comes into it, Simon, and maybe it's overplayed, but this is going to be an insanely emotional occasion, and how players deal with that. I always, this is unique, but I always look at like the way that teams play the week after a big comeback win, a big emotional win, a big things like, for recent years, things like the Minneapolis Miracle. They got hammered the next week because you get to that point and it's very difficult to raise your game again. That is the one thing that makes this a bigger question mark for me, because both teams are going to be going through heavy, heavy emotions, seeing each other on the field again, and which coaching staff and which team deal better with that might be a huge deciding factor on this game.
Do you think Damar Hamlin will come out at the start?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did the coin toss or something like that. Or as a captain or something like that. What I will say about that, and I think the Bengals will win this game actually. What I will say is that the Dolphins left about 175 yards of dropped passes on the field. Mm-hmm. Two deep balls to Waddle that were dropped, a deep ball to Mike Gesicki that was dropped. Tyreek Hill had 2 drops. And this, we're talking about T. Higgins and we're talking about Jamar Chase and we're talking about Tyler Boyd. I would not be surprised if the Bengals shocked everybody and won this game. And I just think that they've just got a superpower offense. And even if it means keeping a back in, maybe see more of Samaje Perine, who's a much better in pass protection than Joe Mixon, and just keeping him in and quick throws to those receivers who are really good at making yards after the catch. I just wouldn't be surprised to see the Bengals walk out there with a win. And I think it'll be a really tight, really intense, emotional, could well be game of the season. It's good, just got that vibe about it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That's 8 o'clock Sunday evening. It's an earlier kickoff, isn't it? It's NFC games then. Giants, Eagles, Saturday night in the prime time slot, as is a surprise to nobody. This is a funny one to me when we're talking about the competitive balance, when we're talking about people forgetting about teams. I feel like the Eagles having a week off. I feel like the Eagles having the 2 losses without Jalen Hurts there. I feel like people have kind of forgotten the Eagles are a really, really good football team, because the number of picks I'm seeing for the Giants and the conversation about, is something special happening there? Is this like the 2 Eli Manning Super Bowl runs? And I love Daboll, and I love what the Lions have managed to do, and I love how they've managed to turn Daniel Jones around in this season. I just think that Philadelphia are a much better, much deeper football team, and this is unfortunately where that fairy tale stops. But maybe I'm a cynic, Simon.
Yeah, maybe. I think it goes back to that point I said earlier on about, with the lost games, with the Hurts injury, kind of not looking great when they came back, the week off, those sorts of things. But then, the flip side is they've been phenomenal all season. They're brilliantly coached. It's going to be a great matchup between Wink's defense and Shane Steichen's offense. Nobody's been able to shut Hurts down all season. Miles Sanders is playing really well. The receivers are great. And then you just look at that. You look at both lines, actually. Both the job that they've done in terms of building both lines. The offensive line is phenomenal with Dickerson and with Mailata and Kelsey and Lane Johnson. And the defensive line, Brandon Graham's still going. But, inside out, just great talent. And then that secondary with those corners of Slay and Bradbury, and then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is just a phenomenal player. I can't, as impressive as the Giants were at the weekend and as good as they've become with Daniel Jones at quarterback, I find it hard to see anything other than a Eagles victory, Mike.
Yeah, I watched a bit of tape from the Giants-Vikings game yesterday, and honestly, just to say again, how exciting the Giants were to watch last weekend was just phenomenal play from an X-factor quarterback in Daniel Jones that can run. I give the Eagles, or I'll give the Giants the running back position as a strength of power over the Eagles in the sense of the way Saquon's played. And it goes down to Daniel Jones. Can he make those runs when he's under pressure and try and gain some first downs on maybe 3rd and long situations, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 against this Eagles team? We're recording this on January the 19th. The last time Jalen Hurts played, when you would argue that he was fully healthy, was a month ago, December the 18th. He's fully practicing this week in practice. A full participant. Can he make deep shots? Can he make his playmaker throws? Can he put his marker on the game in the same way that he can? If he can, the Eagles win this game comfortably. That being said, the Giants should be extremely proud of themselves in every facet of the game in terms of what they've done.
Mike McQuaid giving them a pat on the back. How lovely.
But I think the Eagles, I am genuinely intrigued to see how the Eagles come out, because we've seen them without Jalen Hurts, the pressure is on, like, all the pressure's on the Eagles here. There's not an iota of pressure on the Giants. Not one person expects the Giants to win this game. So let's see what happens.
I tell you, the one thing I am intrigued to see from as a matchup perspective is the Giants line. Dexter Lawrence has been excellent through the middle. They feel like their defensive front has been much improved. No Lane Johnson this week is a problem for the Eagles. One of Jalen Hurts' biggest areas of improvement in the entirety of this season has been how good he's been under pressure, how brilliant he's been at both reading the blitz, at escaping the pockets at the right time, moving up in the pocket at the right time. Like his decision making is just leaps and bounds. But coming off that injury, is that still going to be the same? Will the Giants get some play up front? That's the area where I think the Giants, that's a big question mark area for me that I'm going to be watching out for. But yeah, I love all these matchups this weekend. There's great things to take from all of them. I just feel like the Eagles are probably going to be too much for New York. I think this is the one that most people are picking upset in. I think this is the one with the tightest line by a country mile. I think most people seem to have forgotten that the Dallas Cowboys were playing a Buccaneers team who didn't deserve to be in the playoffs last week before they head to San Francisco. Doesn't mean I don't have fear about this game. Doesn't mean I'm not concerned about this game. Cowboys-Niners, Sunday night, prime time. Yeah, I think it's the second most played playoff game of all time. It's an absolute classic. It's a barn burner. It was a good game last year. I think it's going to be a great game this year.
Yeah, I think it'll be an excellent game. To be honest, I think the 49ers will win this comfortably. I just think they're too good. I think they're too good defensively. I think they're too good offensively. I also think they had that clear advantage in preparation. 2 more days off from the Cowboys, but also when the Giants won on Saturday, or on Sunday, sorry, I think they would have likely have gone all in on Dallas prep since they'd already played the Buccaneers and would have done a fair amount of film work on them already. So I just look at the 49ers and just think, I said it last week, there's going to come a Brock Purdy fall. Do Dallas have the defense to have a Brock Purdy fall? And how do they set up that defense? The battle between Dan Quinn and Kyle Shanahan will be huge, Mike, won't it? I mean, what will they do with Micah Parsons? Will Micah Parsons spy? Will he spy McCaffrey in terms of, if you get 15, 18 touches from McCaffrey, in the passing game and out the slot and as a running back, that takes Micah Parsons away from what he does best, which is blitz. But then, that leaves so many players open. And you look at that 49ers, that 49ers offense is so loaded. Is it McCaffrey or Elijah Mitchell or Ray McLeod? And here comes Debo and Purdy can move the ball with his legs. And here's Juwan Jennings and here's Brandon Ayuk. Oh, and don't forget about Ross Dwelly. Oh, and here's George Kittle. And there are so many players that can hurt you in so many different ways, and all of them working as a perfect unit, whether that's blocking, whether that's whatever it is that they do. You have to look at Brandon Ayuk's block down the field for Samuel's touchdown, Mike. It's just it's a perfectly oiled machine. And I think as long as that offensive line can keep Purdy up, and as long as Purdy keeps his head in the game, I think the 49ers will beat the Eagles next week, because they've just got, it's going to be such a great game, but I can't see anything, Will and Mike, other than 49ers win, which is probably the death knell. And look at Willie's little face. He's so excited. But yeah, 49ers.
Terrified.
49ers.
Terrified.
I am known to be in the jinx on the internet for everything. And I'm going to say it now. I've got the Niners going to the Super Bowl. I find it incredible that Dan Quinn has got an interview with the Denver Broncos on Friday this week when they're playing the Niners in the NFC divisional game this weekend. That's one thing. And then we were on the podcast on Monday evening, and I think we were all a bit tired. Boys, we're not doing the Monday night playoff game ever again. It's too much, 3 days in a row, 3 late nights in a row. But it's crazy to think that the Niners have had 2 days extra than the Cowboys to prepare for this. And Will, you said it to me yourself during this game about this Tampa Bay team didn't deserve to be there. Look, obviously the Cowboys took their opportunities, but the reality is they're going up against a Niners team with, I don't want to say Mr. Irrelevant because it's the cheesy term to say, but Brock Purdy averages a higher EPA than Patrick Mahomes when he's on the field. So hopefully that's music to people's ears.
I mean, that's mental. And you've got to talk small sample size. You've got to talk about opponents. You've got to talk about all of that. However, I think that the way that Kyle Shanahan sets up that offense, the way that with Christian McCaffrey, there can be so multiple. I'm sure people saw that Dan Orlovsky 21 personnel video he did, where he's like, the 49ers can leave 21 personnel on the field for an entire drive and play 9 different formations out of that same personnel. It's ridiculous how multiple they are and how difficult that is to break down as a defense. I think the Cowboys could go they could go big nickel and play an extra safety and just try and counteract that and basically focus on. Yeah, I think actually what you saw a couple of teams do earlier in the season was just man up on the 49ers and try and keep it as simple as possible. And maybe they try and do something like that and it might work. But actually, I think outside of if their big superstars step up, if Micah Parsons just has a monster game and we can't handle him, if that doesn't happen, I can genuinely see the 49ers putting up 35 points in this game. Every time I see that offense step on the field, and that's against the Cowboys defense, who for much of the year we talked about being top 3. That terrifies me that I think that way, and it sets me up for a massive fall. But you're going to put it on the internet, and I'm going to get old takes exposed myself. But I've seen a lot of people. This has got the lowest over/under of the weekend, and I actually think it might turn into a shootout, and I'm excited about that. But look, we've got the Tales from the Bay podcast where you can hear more of my thoughts on the 49ers. So I'll make my pick here, and I'll say San Francisco. But yeah, we'll get into more depth with it with Nicholas on that show. God, I wish we were playing first again this weekend. That was so much better last weekend. I could just enjoy the rest of it without the stress. Now I've just got 3 playoff games where I'll be keeping half an eye on it and spend the rest of the time biting my nails. Simon, any final thoughts before we sign off on another cracking show?
No, I just want to wish you the best of luck, Will. I mean, it would be unbelievable to be in this position to be nervous about a divisional game, something I've not had for 22 whole years. So yeah, good luck. I think it's going to be a great weekend of football. Some cracking games. You can just pick either of them, any of them. You're just like, wow, that's a great. I know actually that's a great game. Well, Bills Bengals. I'm really looking forward to. I think it should be an absolute barn burner. In fact, the 2 Sunday games really, both of them have got absolutely Special K written all over them. So, as they would say, as Mike might say on a trip to Munich, that's good.
That's good, yeah. Will, I will wish you luck as well, my friend. And as a Denver Broncos fan who's been through more quarterbacks than girlfriends, I find it incredible that Brock Purdy's come in and done the job. So fair play, not jealous at all. And I'll echo what Sai says. And I hope Trevor Lawrence turns it on Saturday night. I want to see a full weekend of crazy games, overtime, you name it. I want to see the Bills game go to overtime just because of what happened last year.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Gents, always good fun. Very excited about the London games. Check out all our content across Gridiron on Twitter, at UK Gridiron on Instagram. I can't remember what it is on Snapchat. Are we on Snapchat, Mike?
No, we're not. We're not on Snapchat, but I will definitely look into it.
I think we should do a Discord. Me and Simon talked about this earlier. Let's set up a Discord channel for the fans. Yes, the other one as well, TikTok, all the good places. Thank you so much for watching.
MySpace, are we there?
Habbo Hotel, Bebo, all the big names.
We'll
Thank you so much for watching and listening. This has been The Gridiron Show. Stop it.